there's always this argument, this struggle around money. And when we think about when we're going through a divorce, our lives are being torn apart, families are being torn apart. We're going through this transition period, and no one goes into a marriage thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get divorced." I mean, imagine if you did. But we go into a marriage thinking, "I'm going to make this work, till death do us part." We say our wedding vows, but then the relationship goes sour for whatever reason, and it takes two to make that relationship work. And there's thousands of reasons why people get divorced. But when it ultimately comes to it, it's about trusting ourselves, taking care of ourselves, trusting the relationship that we have with ourselves, with our money, with our partner. If you're tired of feeling shame about past financial decisions, worried you'll never achieve financial stability, and ready for a clear plan to take control of your money and experience true financial freedom, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Lisa, wealth activator, independent insurance broker, and your guide to rewriting your money story. I learned the secret to creating financial freedom and stability after divorce, and I'm ready to share it with you. If you're ready for steady, stress-free income, clarity with your money, and the confidence to spend without guilt, grab your favorite essential oil, take a deep breath, and let's sniff our way through the smell of money.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for having me and being here with your group. Gosh, how I became a divorce coach is because I got a divorce. And before that, I was working with women. I called it finding their thing. As an empty nester, you're kind of done with the job because it's not fulfilling anymore, or like kind of what's next. And so it was like always saying, like, what is your thing? Like, what is it you want to do that lights you up? That's your zone of genius. And there's a book called The Big Leap that talks
I'm
a lot.
reading that now.
Yeah. And, the zone of genius, there's 4 different levels, but the zone of genius is like you're doing what you love and you're good at it. So those two combined, when we get to that place, we're fully aligned with our purpose, or what we're passionate about, what we know that we're good at, but it really lights us up. It's like we want to go to work every day but it's not work. So I was working with women to find their thing. And, we'd get moving along, and then there'd always be some roadblocks, some kind of barrier, or some reason why they couldn't keep going. And it usually came down to relationships, or they didn't have a clear understanding of themselves and what they were passionate about. And so I always had to like kind of backtrack with them to remove those blocks and then move forward again, once there was some clarity and they really had a good idea of what's important to them about the thing, the why, right? The all important why.
Yeah.
You want to save money. Why do you want to spend money? All those things. So I was going along for a number of years doing that. And my relationship was, it was, struggling. And I just, I remember there's just so much energy that I was pouring into the relationship, emotionally and everything, while trying to run my business, trying to, still working with these women. And then eventually we divorced. And it was after the divorce that I just felt this freedom, like this release. It's like, I'm no longer responsible for this person. It's just me. And then I could pour all my energy into my business and what I was passionate about. And, I was already in my zone of genius, but it was just like just kind of the energy that I needed to put into it was being sucked out of it because my relationship wasn't supporting me. So I wasn't able to support my relationship. So that was kind of my journey. And then and then since it was divorce and relationships and money that are a lot of times that are, is at the foundational part at the root of it, I decided to focus on divorce again so that women can get that clarity back and start determining and deciding what their future is going to be and how they're going to spend their money and how they're going to spend their time and all those things, and then move them forward to finding their thing. So, we can go and we go and go unless we address the blocks, the beliefs, the patterns, all those things that are getting in the way of us living in our zone of genius. And this, if we don't address them and we heal them, acknowledge them, all the deeper work, not just, oh yeah, I read that book and now I know this about me and I'm good. It's like, no, it's like you don't learn how to do finances by reading a book. It's by having someone like you. It's like, yeah, you can know that you're supposed to do this, but what's the problem? So
Right. Well, you actually do it.
yeah. So 'cause I read all kinds of books on relationship and, oh, well, now I know this about me. Well, maybe this is what's going on. But it wasn't until I had a coach that I could actually like move through the divorce and good, who knows where I might have been or ended up if I didn't have that extra support and just in the clarity and the guidance to help me see a new perspective for myself. I might have still been blaming him for everything.
Mhm.
It's just like, he was just being him and I was being me, and it's time to take responsibility. Like, if I didn't manage money well, it's not on him, because how I manage money, it's on me. And when we take responsibility for ourselves and our choices, all those things, then we're empowered. And then it's like, oh, do I really want to do that?
Exactly.
There should be a direct consequence, not just, oh, he'll rescue me, he'll fix it, or, well, he's spending money, I'll spend my, all the things that get in the way.
That's really common. I definitely wanna talk about that because a lot of times in relationships, when we're married, we don't have that financial talk. We don't sit down and say, "Okay, we're gonna get this joint account, and this is how the bill is gonna be paid." Especially if one partner makes more than the other. I know a lot of partners where they keep their money separate. They each have their own checking savings accounts, and they might have a joint checking account for their household expenses, but whatever money they make, they do what they want with, and they're still contributing to the household. So whatever works for couples is going to work. But sitting down and having that conversation is so important and saying, okay, this is how much money we need to run this household. We need to both put in our equal share, period. That's how I see it. Just period. Equal share. And if you don't have that conversation and we talked about this pre-show, well, I'm supporting him while he's going to school, or, I'm in school right now, so I can't contribute my fair share, or I'm a stay-at-home mom, so that is my share. And I think a lot of stay-at-home moms don't see the value of the money indirectly, because money is energy and they're indirectly contributing by
Mhm.
staying at home. When I used to tell my husband this all the time when our kids were little, I am contributing. I mean, I was working full time, but he used to work overtime. So he was gone until like 9 o'clock every night. I was like a single mom taking all the
Yeah,
kids
I've
to
been there.
their activities, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, and he would say, well, I pay the bulk of the bills because you don't make as much money as I do. And it's just like, well, no, I stay home and take care of the children so you can stay and work extra hours to cover the bulk of the bills. We can swap. You can stay home and I'll go work extra hours. Might be more sane for me to do that.
Yeah, really.
We don't.
You stay home with the kids 20.
Exactly. But we don't see the value of our partner's contribution. I know a lot of couples, and this is, it goes for men too. Like some men make less than their wives and they're not the breadwinners, and their wives, well, we don't make as much money as I do. And they just constantly bring it up into their face. And it creates this tension in this feeling of being inadequate. And I don't know how many moms I've talked to who feel like they can't spend money because they didn't earn it. That they're a stay-at-home mom and they didn't earn it. So what's your viewpoint? Like when you're talking to someone, like I imagine a lot of the conversations with divorce moms are, people going through divorce, getting coaching is like bashing the other, partner and going through trying to process it and acknowledge the thoughts. But at the same time, it's just like, I can't afford this. Like, how am I going to survive? Rent is so
Yeah.
expensive.
Well, how do you know, like, you can't afford it, or maybe it's a lifestyle that someone wants to have, but the income doesn't match it, right? Like we spend beyond our means, common, I don't actually we hear it very much anymore. But yeah, a lot of people spend beyond their means, just put it on the credit card or, it's okay. We'll just pay it off, when you get your bonus at the end of the year, however, it's like, that's not managing money. And yeah, there could be definitely, there's both sides that, well, I guess I didn't earn it. So I'm not I'm not okay to spend it. And there's so much power behind making our own money or having our own money to do whatever we want with and
Hmm.
feel it's okay. And so that's why, having an understanding, like a budget. It's like, okay, this is our budget and this is what you have and I have, and go do what you want with your budget and I'll do what I want. And when it's gone rather than, well, I can't really afford it. So you just live in this scarcity all the time and then you're like, well, can I just get my nails done once a year? Whatever it is. Can I just go get, coffees once a month? Something that just feels like a luxury instead of
Hmm.
it having to be a sacrifice. Cause then it does emotionally, it does impact the relationship. And then it almost feels like, well, can I spend that? You're always asking permission. It
Right.
that too much to ask for? Or, it's just, it's not a level playing field for sure.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
it's like one person earns more than the other. And it's like, okay, well, that's going to be a factor the whole time you're married. It's like, well, I earn the money. I was like, well, yeah, you do. And I take care of all these other things. Otherwise, I'd go to work. I remember, I was working and it's like time to have a family. And okay. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go back to work as soon as, I start having kids. I had those little kids and it's like, no way am I going back to work and somebody else is going to raise my kids.
Right. Exactly.
And so, you do that for a while, but and it's like, okay, you go to work and I work at home. I work, taking care of the kids and I'll take care of everything else. And that's my
Mhm.
contribution. Cause it you just don't like, it's not a 9 to 5. Most people
Right.
know it's like, the kid is sick in the middle of the night. Well, who gets up, right? Well, I guess you got to go to work. So I'll get up in the middle of the night and I'll sacrifice the sleep because I'm at home. And like you said, if you add up all of that, like, having to go to the doctors and the dentist and, the sicknesses and clothes shopping and school, like if you add all that up, if you had to hire like a nanny or something
Right.
and in daycare, well, I got to ask my boss if I can get off early so I can go take, the kids to sports or something, as a single parent, there's a lot of sacrifice that would come from that. And if it's not seen and respected and appreciated by both people and valued, then there's going to be an imbalance there.
Mhm.
And it spills definitely into money. The money is a big part in it. It's like, can't really afford sitters.
Right, and I know a lot of, marriages break up because the relationship starts to go south because they don't spend any quality time together. They're not dating because of the kids, because the work schedules, and they can't afford a babysitter. There's so many different ways to, figure out like, oh, we can afford this. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And that's why I love creating money buckets because like decide on how you want to spend your money, create a money bucket for it, and then that's how you spend it. And a lot of times we just we have this challenge we're doing right now in the smell of money, and it's the conscious spending. And when you really look and see on a daily basis how we're spending our money, and we can do this for time, we can do this like in our relationship, because, you think about how much effort do you put into your relationship. If you're not spending enough time with it, it's not going to flourish. It's not going to be a productive relationship because you're not putting any effort into it. And I think that's we get complacent and we kind of just do our own thing and we feel insignificant or we start to self-sabotage or what have you because we're not getting what we need, but we're not asking for it either. And that all comes down to trust, like just being able to trust ourselves to ask for what we need. It's so important. So when you think about your own journey and going through the divorce and splitting your finances, and did that make the relationship worse? Or did you have like, oh yeah, we're going to split 50-50? I know some states are 50-50 with the distribution, but others aren't. So how was your experience with that?
Like before the divorce or after? I
As
thought,
you as you were going through the divorce and you had to split everything, you get the house, you get this, you get that. Was
yeah,
it did it, like,
our
hurt?
divorce was very different than traditional. We didn't involve lawyers and mediators and everything. We didn't sit down and start, okay, this is worth this and this is worth that. We were in a place that, it's our relationship is not working. We love each other, but we need to part ways. And it was almost like, how do we part ways so that we both can do well still
Mhm.
and be taken care of, like without one person being without or the other. So, we had two homes. One was more like a fixer upper and it ended up getting fully renovated. And so we had two homes and I'm like, okay, well, I want this other home and you have that home. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And then we each had our own car. That was no big deal. And then we, started looking a bit at finances. Okay, well, what do we have? What money is coming in? Kind of divide it, but, look at it long term too. Because, legally, I'm in Texas and it's like, okay, you're required to have a spousal maintenance for 3 years legally. So we decided to come up with a different agreement rather than just like throw it all out there in one lump sum. It's like, okay, let's spread it out. So we customized it based on what what would make sense and be sustainable over
Right.
time. And when we were both really happy with it, because it's like, okay, well, what furniture do you want? Okay, well, my place doesn't fit this, so I'm going to need some new stuff. So I went and bought new furniture, and it wasn't like, well, that's going to cost that, so it's going to come out of that. It was just get what you need to set up your place and not like, kind of take everything out of the home. So that, he had his things so that our family, like, cause we have 3 girls, we wanted our family to just feel like, hey, it didn't work out for us. It doesn't mean our family is completely gone, like
Right.
apart. So that, and I've come across a number of relationships where they realize it's just not working. We're butting heads. We care about each other, but we just need to move on. And
Mhm.
so then they go through a better scenario, and maybe that's the exception. I hope it's going to be more. I hope more people get to that place instead of waiting till it's so bad then that, you just can't talk to each other. And then now you're like, you're having to draw that, like the line right down the middle. And now actually numbers and everything. Okay, the value of this and value of that, you know, and then gets so nitpicky. And it's where you kind of get that division too. And
Mhm.
like, well, are either one person or are either person really satisfied in the end that, yeah, this is good. This is good for me. This is good. Like, are they? So yeah, it was definitely different for us. And I do suggest that people get financial counsel and other support so that you if you don't know like how to set yourself up long term, right? It's like, well, I guess I better think about retirement, right? What is that going to look like? What do we each need for retirement later on? Or, home maintenance, for money for that. So factoring all those things in, there was just so many areas that I've come to know by talking to financial advisors and managers. And it's like, oh, I didn't consider that, because I was married. I didn't have to think about those things right then. I probably should have, anyways. But yeah, there's so much that we know, but there's a lot that we still don't know to get some support with that and educate ourselves.
Yeah, I just on my YouTube channel, I just did a 10 ways to increase your income. Smart ways to save is what the title of it is.
Mm,
And it's about that, looking one of the ways is to be financially literate, really educate yourself, listen to podcasts, listen to other people's stories, read books. There's tons of books out there and just you go on YouTube and you can watch tons of videos on how to set up like estate planning, retirement planning, and investing in a way that's in alignment with your values and how you want to see your money grow. But thinking about this stuff, it's never too late. I work with a lot of
yeah.
ladies that are in their 50s and are like, I don't have a dime for retirement. I know I've been self-employed and I've just been putting all my money back into my business. And now that I'm solo, it's really hitting hard because there's just me. And I completely understand that, but it's okay because you can set up your portfolio so that it does for you what you want it to do as far as creating that nest egg, building that legacy. The thing I hear the most is, I just want to have enough money to enjoy spending without guilt and be able to provide for my adult children, like be able to gift them things. Is we have this heart as moms to want to provide and to give, and it's beautiful. And some financial advisors will say, forget that. Don't worry about the, giving to your kids. Take care of you and enjoy yourself. So being able to have the money to do both, like if you do want to help out, your children, adult children in some way, you can comfortably do that without worrying about your own future, being insecure. You could set it up with your money bucket so that you have enough. And again, it just goes back to having that relationship with money, trusting yourself to say, okay, this is what I need to do. And as a divorced mompreneur, we have mostly mompreneurs listening in our audience, thinking about, like being in that situation where I only have X amount of dollars coming in. I don't have enough. And there's plenty. You just have to tell yourself when you're talking about this, what I love about the big leap is, they were talking about the numbers that you had mentioned earlier, and he had given an example, I think it was chapter 4 or 5, about spending time trying to figure it out on your own without hiring a coach. And he used the example of his friend who I think he was an attorney, but he was trying to install his own printer and it took him like 13 hours, and I guess the guy charges $1,000 an hour. So, he ended up paying someone $100 to fix it or to install it. And the author had pointed that out and said, you should have just, basically you should have just hired somebody initially. And this is what we do. we because we don't trust ourselves and others, maybe we've been burned or what have you, we'll spend hours researching when all it is like, I can just connect with the perfect coach and get my answers quickly, and I don't have to go down a rabbit hole. And this is for insurance too. I'm an independent insurance broker, and I see people spending hours in the marketplace looking for insurance, and I'm like, stop, because you're not even buying the right insurance. You don't know, there's too many rabbit bunny trails to go down, you know, thinking about what's the best option. Like, you want to talk to somebody who's integrated in that field, who has that expertise, who's been there, who knows exactly how to navigate it in seconds versus hours versus days. So important to connect with coaches. So tell us how you help your clients. Give us a little example of the path that you walk them through. What's the best time for someone to work with you?
I guess I love everything you said because, like definitely the work that you're doing with people is just like, how do you value money? Where are you going to put your money and so it can work for you later on, not just now, but plan. So it's like, rather than wait till you have no money, which is kind of like after divorce, it's like, oh, I wish I would have, made those whatever decisions about my finances, like rather than wait to find out I'm now divorced and we've already signed all the papers and all the agreements and oh, I wish I would have, made different choices, but they weren't in the head space. They were in the heart space. They were, all the emotions were, like it was almost like a tornado or a flood coming in, like, the emotions come in and then they go in, Nikki. So you're kind of in a down or you're an up or you're an anxious. There's so much going on that, that people are navigating at that time. That you can't really see the clarity and definitely not make really sound choices and judgments. Have a good judgment about what do I need, and no, just give it all to him. I just want nothing to do with it. And then it's like, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. I have a couple clients. It's like because they were just, I don't want anything to do with them. I just want it to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not going to go away if you have nothing because it's just going to follow you because now you have nothing. So if you set yourself up with an agreement, now you can just let it go. So, if someone knows that they've done everything they can in the relationship, they've tried as much as they can and still it's not working. So they're like, okay, well, it's kind of like maybe the other person doesn't want a divorce, but it's like for you, it's like, I'm done and I'm moving on. And so that's a good time to start really looking at the finances. It's like, well, where are the finances and what's coming in and what assets do we have? But really at the same time, take care of the internal part as you're like letting go of this relationship because we're wired to stay connected. We're neurologically wired. And so even though you want to be done with the relationship, there's that primal instinct that says, no, don't do it. Don't, stay like, hold on, right? As much as like, don't go, you can figure it out. But you are, one of the other person is leaving. So as soon as you know that is happening, whether it's your choice or somebody else's choice, I always say, just start taking care of yourself first, like, the emotional part, self-care, all the basics, sleep, rest, eat, all those things. But also the thoughts are going crazy. And like, he did this, she did that, this is happening. And we just spiral and spiral. And just like, monitoring money.
Mm-hmm.
When you monitor your thoughts and you can stand back, it's called disassociating. When you can disassociate and observe your thoughts, it's like, what am I thinking? Like, wow, an hour's gone by and I've been like obsessing about whatever for an hour. So that obsessing creates like an emotional response, which creates a neurological response. And then you're supposed to make a sound, logical, good judgment decision about your future from that place. So I do a lot of work we just call it mindset, because it's not just mindset. It's like, what are you worried about? What's the patterns that are happening? What are the beliefs about yourself and your future? What's possible? What have you carried from your family, your parents? Like, cause it gets passed down, right? About the beliefs about money, beliefs about love and relationships. We dive into all of that to really start dismantling it and reprogramming it and rewiring it. And so, in doing that, it's like, oh, what do you value about a relationship? What do you value about money? Well, I just want to have money so I could be able to pay my rent. Well, is that all you value money for? Well, I kind of like to go out and have a cocktail once in a while. Okay, well, what else do you value about money? What else do you value about, you know, yourself, like taking care of yourself? Why is it important? The big why. Like, why is it important to take care of yourself? Well, so that I can have clarity and I'm not foggy brained and I'm not snapping at people because my emotions are, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm grieving. It's like a lot of times we don't take time to even acknowledge what we're feeling and what we're going through. It's like loving on yourself. I remember the first, like early on when it's like learning about self love. It's like, well, I love myself. Well, how do I love myself? Well, I guess I love myself. And then really diving into it, it's like, well, am I surrounding myself with people that support me? Kind of, am I saying yes to everything that people are asking me? It's like, well, yeah. And it's like, well, how is that self love when you're so exhausted and maxed out, you're burned out, but you're still saying yes to these things, saying yes to the person that's going to be your former husband soon? It's like, yes, you can have this. Yes, you can have that. So yeah, I do a lot of that internal work with people and then asking the questions, about money, about, whatever it is that they need, that they're going to need after the divorce. Like,
Mhm.
don't think about right now. Like, yes, be in the present and we call that chunking down, but then chunk up, look at the big picture and it's how do you want your life to be a year from now after your divorce, 5 years from now? And just like what you're doing, you got to plan. It's like, well, if you don't have what you need to help you start or even to believe that something is possible, like then how are you going to see your future the way you want because you don't even believe you can have it? So again, there's this alignment and the zone of genius. You can call, like after divorce, you can be in your zone of genius. It's like, well, yeah, I was this person in the relationship and it was going okay. So that's the zone of excellence. I was good at being a wife, as good as I can be, but it wasn't going well. I wasn't happy. I wasn't passionate about the relationship. Okay, well, the relationship is gone. How about getting into your zone of genius about yourself and your life,
Mhm.
doing what you like, doing what you're passionate about, doing what lights you up, feeling good about yourself, regardless of what size you are, or what foods you like, or are you in that zone of genius, loving your life and loving yourself?
Mhm. And that's
And
so
means
important
to do
to
that.
identify that.
Sorry?
It's so important to identify that, and I think especially as we go through that transition, we lose ourselves raising a family, being a wife. There's so many demands, and we don't put ourselves first and prioritize, and then when you're faced with, "Oh, wow, there's just me now, and do I even like myself?" And then working on you to build up that relationship so that you can be the best person and you can be in your zone of genius and be able to get what you truly want. We all want to find true happiness. And what does that happiness look like? It's different for each and every one of us. But really, being happy with yourself is where it begins. Because if you don't like you, no one's going to like you. We have to be our best cheerleader, our
Yeah,
best
I feel a lot
friend.
in relationships, we sacrifice a lot. There's a lot of self-abandonment.
Hmm.
And especially after divorce, it's like, well, why did I do that? Why did I allow that? It's, well, why did you? Oh, it's good. It's good to kind of, rather than condemning yourself and being really mean with yourself, it's like, well, ask those questions. What was going on that you did do those things? Because there was
Hmm.
something motivating the behavior that, again, the programming, it could be passed down because, well, that's how, our moms or dads did it. That's how grandma did it. That's how our whole extended family did it. That's how our culture did it, especially, culturally. That plays into a lot of how we see ourselves and how we manage things.
Hmm.
And it's like, value ourselves, but how do we value ourselves when we're just constantly, well, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, and it just, and focusing again those thoughts. If you don't even know those are the thoughts that you're having about yourself, how are you supposed to create that next thing, like create this life that you're going to love and look forward to waking up to every day? And rather than, well, I can't do that. Well, I can't do that. It's like, well, what can you do? There's something that you can do. Like, get with you. First of all, just start, hey, like I've got this money. How do I make it grow? How do I
Hmm.
use it wisely? Because, money beliefs, money patterns, like unless, like we're not necessarily taught all the things and then we just watch, well, we never had money growing up. So I just, like, every time I got money, I spent it, right? Because
Right.
I'm never going to have any. So when I get it, I'll buy something and then I don't have money again rather than, oh, now I have money. I'll save half and I'll spend half. So it's the unspoken way that we saw, or like, whatever it was about how money was handled, or even the belief it's like, oh, those people have quite a bit of money. How did they get it? Right? What did they do that it was maybe underhanded? It's like, well, they worked hard. Yeah, but we work hard too, and we don't have money.
Mhm.
It's so kind of subtle, and it's right in our faces at the same time.
Yes.
And it
And,
really,
the comparison factor is probably the biggest pitfall that we go into because everyone has their own journey and it's all a matter of choice. And when we decide whatever we want, if you think about all the things that you've accomplished in your life, you made that choice to get that and you went after it. You were diligent. You put in the work, you put in the action. And a lot of times people will say, well, I want to make $50,000 months, or, it doesn't matter what number it is that you want to make, but you say it, but you don't take any action. You don't
yeah,
pay attention to your money and you don't trust yourself to be a good steward of your money. Therefore, you never get. And, a lot of times entrepreneurs will be like, well, I'm just going to make more money and that will solve all my problems. No, making more money gives you more problems. It doesn't solve any of your problems. And if you don't know what to do with $1,000, you're certainly not going to know what to do with $50,000. You're just going to blow it faster than it comes in because you don't trust yourself. And ultimately, it's that relationship with yourself. When you love yourself and you can understand what your desires, what your goals, how you want your life to be, that's when everything falls into place. And having coaches like yourself to see that outer view. I like the fact that you said you chunk things down and then you chunk it up. We're so used to, when having that bird's eye view of our life, having someone say, okay, asking you the right questions, because we're never going to ask ourselves the hard questions. We're never going to get deep enough to get to the layer of our heart center to say, yeah, this is what I want, because we'll get distracted. We'll come up with excuses. We'll do all kinds of self-sabotaging things to prevent us. And we can spend hours thinking, okay, what can I do? And we start to listen. We go after the shiny object syndrome. And it's just like really just connect with one coach that you're completely aligned with. And, understanding how, like, listen to your intuition. Like I worked with tons of coaches and some of them weren't a good fit. And I knew on the call that they weren't going to be a good fit, but I did it anyways because I was in the shiny object syndrome because I didn't trust myself. And I thought, well, all coaches have excellent programs, but they might not all work for you because of where you're at that moment, because of what you're ready to receive and implement. So asking yourself, like, is this a good fit at this time in my life? Most of the time, you're going to get the right answer, and then you can choose whether to invest or not. And it doesn't matter. Like when we come from a place of, I want to invest in myself because I want to improve so that I can turn around and help others. That's a different position than, well, I don't really want to invest in myself. I can't afford it. That person's too expensive, to this, to that. No, that's like the wrong approach because you're not doing it based on your own thoughts. You're doing it based on what someone else is telling you. Anytime, our thoughts are so important. It's the most powerful tool that we have. And when you can get help activating those thoughts and really examining them and asking yourself, what is it that I believe? And I know a lot of women that go through divorce just feel like failures. It's like, well, I failed in a marriage. I'm no good. And, I remember when I was a single mom and it was like, well, who's going to want you with a kid? Your baggage. That's a horrible thing to say to somebody, especially.
say that to ourselves. It's
And
like,
right.
me, I've got a kid.
And I remember when I went back dating, I'd be like, well, I just right up front, I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm just going to tell them I have a kid right up front, first 5 minutes. Well, you probably don't want to hang out with me because I'm a single mom. I have a kid.
Maybe I thought maybe I might, but since you're putting it that way, maybe I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
our
have time to waste here.
Our words are so powerful. I'm trained in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and yeah, our words are so powerful. Like even just to you meet someone, it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to want to go out with me because I've got a kid, rather than I've got a kid, like we're really doing well, and yeah, I'd like to explore a relationship with you, rather than you don't want to go out with me. It's like, or maybe I don't. There must be something wrong with you if you're telling me up front. Rather,
That's
and that's
right.
the last thing you want. It's like, I've got this baggage. I'm a single mom. All these things that are wrong with me. It's like there's nothing wrong with you. You're a single
Mhm.
mom and you got a kid. So it is.
Right.
And, you were talking about, just when people are ready, and there's kind of like two people that come to me, the ones that want a quick fix, and then the ones that are ready to really do some healing. And The quick fixes is like, okay, just, well, it's their fault. What do I need to do? And, and they're not looking at taking responsibility, being accountable, all those things. And then somebody's like, make this go away. I don't want to bury it anymore. I don't want it just to go away because I know it's going to come back to bite me. How do I really move on from this relationship? Again, the attachment that we have, the primal instinct is to stay connected. And some people might create extreme situations, like they I don't know, like say you break a leg. I need you to help me, right? Because it tethers you together, right? Or you lash out at the person and then they lash back, but we get to stay tethered together. And so it's like, it's all about disconnecting. A book I'm reading, I've had it for a while. It's The Untethered Soul. Michael Singer, I think it is. He talks about it, but there's also other resources that I have that we create situations and scenarios so that even if the divorce is over, we make excuses or find reasons that we can. I kept the house, but I don't know how to fix it, so I'll just call them and come over and help. Like all those things. How about if I just call the plumber rather than involving him? And then you really disconnect on an emotional level and a dependence way. And we start taking responsibility for what we've chosen and what we've signed up for.
Yes. Taking responsibility is key. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I love that. Tell us, what's the best way for our audience to connect with you and to work with you?
Yeah. Probably the easiest way is go to my website, which is createyourlifeafterdivorce.com. And you can find out more about me. You can connect with me, see programs that I have offered there, just, get some insights and inspirations. You can find me on Facebook as well. Just, it's Joyce Ayers. And I think there's a few of us, but just look for the one with white hair. And I'm posting all kinds of things there about, I'm kind of on this self-abandonment kick right now. Self-sacrifice. It's like, ooh, how did I abandon myself? How did I sacrifice what I really wanted in, whatever area of life that is. So yeah, they can reach me there and get a hold of me, have a convo of what's going on in your life and why don't you have what you want? Why are you settling? Why are you tolerating, right? Why are you tolerating your own behavior?
Start asking those hard questions, hard questions. Well, thank you so much.
I do it in a compassionate way. I don't throw you under the bus.
Some of the audience might like that though. Be direct, right? But yeah, thank you so much, Joyce. And for those of you listening, check the show notes for those links to connect with Joyce. Follow her and see if it's something that like you're in a position to think, oh, you know what? I've been trying to do this on my own. I'm spending all these hours endlessly searching for answers and ending up nowhere. This is your clue that Joyce might be a good fit for you. And then when you think about your finances, your money, and you're transitioning, or maybe you're already divorced and you're building up that business, think about, how do I want to spend my money? What does financial freedom mean to me? Realizing that you are the author and you get to create the money, the finances of your dream. You can build that beautiful legacy so that your money works for you, not you for it. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it. Hey mompreneurs, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please follow the show and share it with a friend who's rebuilding her finances after divorce. No spreadsheets, no restrictive budgets, only confidence to build financial freedom. Also, please drop a quick 5-star review so more moms starting over can find this. It lights me up to know this podcast is helping you. Inhale confidence, exhale scarcity. I'll meet you back on Tuesday for another episode. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.